Okay, so this is my best Boris Karloff lighting for tonight. It is about midnight and the moon went down, I don't know, let's say a little over an hour ago, and I am at a place I've never been, and this was an idea I had. Now I will say that the people that own the property, I'm fortunate enough to know them, but I've never been here, so my first time here is tonight. Let's go with beauty lighting. And it's dark, and it is August, so the little miniature devil bats are out, so I've tried to spray as best I can to keep those guys off of me. But the shot that we're going to take is kind of a pre-shot to something I want to try from the water at a later date, but I wasn't sure how much light pollution I was going to get, so I thought, well, the first shot needs to be out here on the grass so I can have a little bit better control. So these folks have been gracious enough to let me use their land. They have a pier, I don't know if you can see it, that goes out onto the water, and which I guess that's how most piers are, but goes out there and it faces pretty much north. So the idea being that we're going to work with two shots. That was a very large something. Did I mention this lake has alligators? That's just great. We're going to work with two shots. The first shot being a drone lit shot of the pier itself. And then we'll start with star trail shots, and we'll probably let it sit for a couple of hours, so we're going to get anywhere from 250 to 300 shots to get the star trails. Since we are pointed north, the concentric circles will be in the shot, but since I'm centered on the pier, it may not be exactly north, so they may be off center a little bit, but that's okay. We're going to see if this works or not. So the first shot we're going to get will be the drone. We get the camera adjusted for that and send that guy up and see what we get. And we'll go from there. See you in a little while. Okay, so I ended up taking a couple of shots. I did do one lighting the pier all the way down. Actually, the first shot I took, the tip of the pier got a little too much light, so I tried to balance that out on the second shot. And then the next shot I took, there are a couple of trees out there off to the right. They show up a little bit, and so I just put a little light on them so they wouldn't be completely silhouetted. I didn't put a lot. The altitude and the brightness of the drone and the Lume Cube lights that were on it, I kept those, well, I kept the Lume Cubes fairly low and the drone fairly high above the trees, so that way the light wasn't too bright. So we're going to change the setup now. We're going to change our ISO, change our f-stop, keep the composition the same, and we're going to get started on our star trails. Here we go. Okay, so it is now somewhere between 2:30 and 2:45, and the little mini flying blood bats don't seem to care. So we're going to go ahead and pack this up. We've been going, like I say, since just before midnight, and we have a 30-second exposure. We're doing those every 33 seconds, so we should have enough for some pretty good star trails. Now, this is not a very dark area, although this particular backyard, it's pretty dark. It doesn't rank on that Bortle scale like if you were at Big Bend or something, so we are going to get quite a bit of light pollution over the lake, but it's still fun, and we're still going to make the very best of it. There's all kinds of huge water movement sounds just behind me. Kind of makes you wonder what's there, but that's okay too. One thing I did not realize, because this was a very last minute thing, tonight is a meteor shower. So the meteor shower was supposed to be between 2 a.m. and peaking at 5 a.m. I have seen a dozen or so just in the last little while sitting out here. Oh, that's just lots of fun. They're coming to get me. So we're going to shut this down. We'll take this back and see what we've got. Crazy blood-sucking bugs. Okay, so we've come home, and actually this is the next morning. We have uploaded all of our images excuse me, to Lightroom. At least I have. And again, everyone has their own way of doing things. This was just how I did it today. Tomorrow, I don't know. We may change things up and just go crazy. But for today, this is how we did it. We upload our images to Lightroom. At this point, I have not made any adjustments to anything. I got rid of a few dead images in here that I had taken beforehand. So what we see on the screen now is that is our very first image we shot with you can see our drone going back and forth here. I haven't done anything to it. This is just the natural color, which is good. So we've got this going for us here. On our next shot, we went out to the trees, and here we have the trees. Of course, you can see this really cool pattern here, but just enough to give some definition in the trees. I'm not looking to individually light every single tree out here. I just want something to know what's there. I didn't realize until later on that there was actually a little tree way down there, and I didn't see that until later on, or otherwise we would have highlighted that little guy as well, but we didn't. But that's okay. So those are our first two shots, and then we have a series of shots that are these. As I advance along, you can see it's very little difference, just a very slight movement in the stars from one location to the next. So the great thing is on these kind of shots, I can make one adjustment and then apply that to every image on here. And again, really, there's not much that I have to do. I'm not concerned about this foreground because we have that covered here and with the tree. So I am not at all concerned about this area right here. All I'm concerned about is my sky and my stars. All I'm going to do is bump up the clarity just slightly, not much. I may bring the texture up just slightly. Now, if you wanted to go into dehaze and darken that sky a little bit, you could do that, especially on star trails, so you get a little bit more definition. Not so much if you're doing nightscapes. Of course, every circumstance is different, but really that's all I'm going to do. And in case you don't already know this, if I want to apply this to all of my images, I keep my one image selected that I'm working on, and I scroll all the way down here to the end, and we're going to select all those, and all you have to do is hit sync. And it will ask you, do you want to sync everything that you've done? And you say synchronize. And then lo and behold, all of these images have the same exact color correction. Okay. Now the other thing that I do is I do allow for profile corrections. And that's just my preference. There are those who don't care for it here and there, and that's really your call. So really all I'm doing is making sure everything is profile corrected, and the color balance is all the same because there's not much I have to do. At this point, once we do this, we select all of our star pictures, go back to our library module, and once we have all that, we can export these. I'm using a Mac, so I use a program called StarStax. I know PC has Starry Landscape Stacker, I believe. But StarStax is a free program, which is amazing. And it is super, super easy. Once you open StarStax, then, let's pull this over here. I'm going to have a folder with all of these pictures that were my sky pictures, and I'm just going to make a folder with all of. And for this image, I just made them JPEGs. So after I've exported all of my sky pictures, they're in a separate folder that I've just personally entitled "Color Corrected Trails." There's my star trails, and basically it's a folder right here that's got all of these images in here. You basically just select the first one. Let me scoot this over so you can see it. Select the first one, select the last one, hit select all, however you want to do it, and drag these little guys right here. Right now I'm working with 295 images. And then up here, there is this fourth button over. It just says start processing. And you just hit it and it goes. I didn't shoot any dark frames. I didn't do anything like that. As you can see, one by one, it's going down the list over here. And as it adds them on, you can see it adds them to your image here. And this does not take long. We're going to skip this part because we don't want to bore you with all this. But what you end up with, I'm going to stop this. After StarStack's finished stacking all of your star pictures, what you end up with is a single image that you can output that looks basically like this. You can see that the foreground is kind of bland. There's no lighting on the trees, but really what I'm looking at is this business right here. What you see here on these little green areas, those are actually fireflies that decided to photobomb in about 2 pictures. And for the sake of today, we're just leaving them in there because I just kind of think they're funny. We then take this picture along with, let me scoot back here, our first picture that we shot and our second picture that we shot. We open up Photoshop and we combine those 3 pictures. Once those three pictures are combined, that's a totally different set of instructions. We're not going to go into all that today. But we combine those three pictures, and then I crop because I don't feel it necessary to have this little bit in here. That's just my personal choice. But we end up with our picture like this. There's still some of the fireflies in there. You can see the pier from front to back. A little bit of the grass. I didn't want to over the star of the show. That was funny. The subject of the show here today is the stars, so we want those to be our brightest areas, and I did not want the foreground to take over. The highlight is just slightly on these trees, so we've combined eventually three pictures. One was our stars, one was our pier, and one was our trees, and that got us to right here. Now, obviously, there are more things taking place in combining those images in Photoshop, and just choices and minimal processing. But, I mean, it is minimal, and it's such a fun thing to do. For those who have not ever shot star trails, always, if this may seem obvious to a lot of people, but if you've never done it, it would not be obvious. The center here, the reason we're getting concentric circles and then a center point is because this is Polaris. This is, some people call it the North Star. Everything revolves around this. Okay, so if you want this effect with concentric circles, that's where you got to point your camera. If this is not an important thing and you just want kind of really cool, because sometimes if you point it in a totally different area, you'll get really cool shapes in your star trails. So those are really cool things to do as well. You certainly don't have to do this. I could not readjust. I didn't want to go out there and rebuild their pier and their dock, and I have no control over the skies and the stars, so it's a little off center. But that's how it was. Could you go in Photoshop or whatever you use and manipulate it and move it over and put them in? Yeah, you could. And again, that's the art of digital imaging. But we're talking about the art of photography at this point. And this is what we had. So this is how we combined the three images that took a little over 2 hours and 45 minutes to shoot. And this happened last night, and we've already got the image up, and it's just a whole lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it.